Hello, everyone. My name is Darlene Arneson. I serve as the District 5 Sons of Norway Secretary and President of Sons of Norway Mat Lodge in Stoughton. Tonight, I'm going to give you a presentation about Tubfrim. Tubfrim is a long-standing Sons of Norway program, something that we have worked with Tubfrim in Norway for many, many years. So we thought it'd be nice to give you some information and some background and ways that your lodge and people in the community can help support the Tubfrim program. So I am going to share my screen and we are going to take a look initially at a PowerPoint and just get started. So this is the building in Tubfrim, which is in Nesbyen in the Hallingdal area of Norway. My daughter had attended a Norwegian folk high school in Gul, which is only a few miles away from Nesbyen. So we had an opportunity a few years ago to visit her. And when we were there, a relative of some members of our lodge offered to take us to Tubfrim and get the grand tour. So, so you always wonder, well, where do all these stamps go and what is the history behind it and how does that whole program work? So this is going to be the visual of what Tubfrim is. So we had an opportunity to meet with the administrator who is on the left-hand side. It's a very small, kind of like an old house that's been converted into the Tubfrim offices. They have a small staff. They have a number of volunteers at that time who were helping them. And so he was giving us some background about their program. You can see in the back of the picture behind the other lady that there's all kinds of displays and some collection boxes and so forth, which we'll take a look at in a few minutes. So opening the mail is kind of like a potpourri every day. So when they open up, they're opening up boxes and envelopes and letters and padded envelopes, and they'll find things sitting on the front steps when they come to work in the morning that people have been collecting stamps or picking up stamps at various places and then dropping them off. So what they primarily start to do is to sort between Norwegian and non-Norwegian stamps. So with the volume of stamps that come into that facility and that they have to manage, obviously it's a painstaking process and one that is all done by hand. And so they do their best to sort those out initially. And there are a lot of stamps there. This box was probably about 3 feet tall and probably 3 by 3 by 3, and it was completely full of trim stamps. So they have a lot of stamps there. And, oftentimes we have people who ask, well, what about these forever stamps? Do people really want them? And so on. And yes, they do, because you'll see in a few minutes how they sell a lot of the stamps. And regardless of whether there are flag stamps or forever stamps, they're an important part of that program. So Cora is holding a perfectly trimmed stamp. So, keep in mind as you're working with your lodge members and other volunteers who might be trimming stamps for you, they need to have that 1/4 inch border completely around the stamp. And so the stamps can't be in a row. If you are putting stamps on an envelope and you need 3 or 4 stamps, make sure you space those out so that if the recipient is also a Tubfrim stamp clipper, they can trim those out and be able to use those. They also just want the piece of paper right that the stamp is adhered to. So, obviously if you just cut it off the envelope, you might get the back part of the envelope, and it's really important that we try to trim those off as well. They can't be torn, they can't be damaged, they can't be too close to the end of the envelope so that if you're trimming it, the edge of the stamp is right on the edge of the paper. We need to have that 1/4 inch all the way around. And it doesn't have to be exactly a 1/4 inch, but there should be, a very visible border around that stamp. So the boxes, as they're sorting into, the green are stamps that are non-Norwegian or outside of Norway, and the red ones with the red tape and the stamps on them are primarily Norwegian stamps. Again, for the volume of stamps that they're having come in, it's really hard to have it 100% on the larger collections. Each one of those boxes holds 1 kilo or 2.2 pounds of stamps, and that is the key, because that's how they sell a lot of the stamps, especially the general stamps and so forth. Collectors will buy basically basically it's like buying a grab bag, and you're buying a kilo of stamps, and out of that whole box, so that 2.2 pounds of stamps, you might find 5 or 10 or maybe 50 stamps that are very valuable that you may or may not have in your collection, and so on, and the rest you'll be discarding. So that's where those forever stamps, the flag stamps and so forth are important, because they make up part of the bulk that goes into these 1 kilo boxes. Whole postcards are bundled and sold. So if you have postcards, they really prefer you leave them intact and send them over. Same thing with older envelopes. And I know on their website, they've got more details on what years and so forth. But if you find some older envelopes, we always say err on the side of caution and just turn those into our district. Tubfrim coordinator, Mary Bennett, can make the decision of whether that should be trimmed or whether it's old enough and so on. But postcards, they really like to have them kept intact. Tubfrim runs various sales then. So they have some specialty collections. So as they're sorting, they'll be pulling out some of the more valuable stamps, or ones that are sports, or they're from different countries, or they're marking holidays and so forth, and they'll sell those with monthly collections. So in a few minutes, we'll take a look at their website, and you can see how they are selling those. And you'll find these collection boxes all over Norway. So if you remember, oh gosh, it must be 10, 12 years ago when we had our district lodge meeting, it was right after we had come back from Norway when Sigrid was there going to school. And we brought back and arranged to have shipped over enough of these collection boxes that we could send home with every delegate. So we have quite a few around, at least 100 and some that around District 5. But in Norway, you'll find that people will have them in their homes, they'll have them on their business counters, they'll have them in their office spaces and so forth. I've got one in my office at work, and one in my home office, and one in the kitchen where I open up most of our mail and so forth. And as I am taking the stamps out the envelopes, I just trim them properly right away before I put them in the box, so that when I get the box full, or I'm going to weigh them and so forth to see how I'm doing with them, they're already trimmed and I don't have to go back and do those. But these were pretty fun. They had bigger size boxes and smaller size ones, and that might be something that the district might want to do again, to arrange a shipment of these boxes over, because it was kind of a fun thing to do at the convention. So how to trim the stamps. Again, they would like that 1/4 inch border all the way around the stamp. The stamp can't be damaged or torn. If they're attached in a row, just toss them out. And also those embossed stamps, like they're like not a nonprofit, but like the bulk ones that are just like an embossed thing. And they can't use those. So you can just toss those right away and not bother with them. What else do they collect? They collect old envelopes and covers and postcards. They also collect telephone cards, and I believe they've added a few more things too. So again, it isn't just those single stamps that they're looking for. What do you do next? So we collect stamps at our lodge, and we have a white kind of waste paper basket that has Tubfrim on the top. This is not garbage. And so when people come, we find all kinds of ways that people bring their stamps. They might be in baggies, they might be in envelopes, they might already be trimmed, they might not be, they might be the whole envelopes and so forth. All of our stamps here at Matt Lodge, I go over before I turn them into the district, so that Mary Bennett doesn't have to. I know she has spent probably thousands of hours trimming stamps in whatever location she's in, because some of the stamps that go to her are literally just torn off the envelopes and thrown into a bag and so on. And it really is helpful if your lodge can have some stamp cutting parties or something, that you can get those stamps properly trimmed and bundled up and so forth and gotten to Mary. That would be helpful. Stamps, Mary Bennett is our District 5 stamp coordinator. She is also the international stamp coordinator. She lives in Sun Prairie. And so she always says, don't worry about mailing her stamps. Give them to your zone directors. If somebody's coming to the Madison area, if you're going to a zone meeting or to a district convention and lodge meeting or Barnaburkey or any other events, just send them along. What happens is they're limited on how the stamps get to Norway. And so it isn't critical that if you send or get your stamps to her in March, they're not going to be in Norway by May by any means. So And then with the postcards, there is a Tubfrim postcard. And when you turn in the equivalent of 1 pound of trim stamps to Mary, the person who's responsible for those stamps can send in a postcard to Minneapolis to the home office. And you can send in 1 card for every pound of trim stamps. And then they have a drawing. And it used to be for a trip to Norway. Now I think it helps to offset the trip to Norway and so forth. And so what are the postcards for? Again, that gets you into the drawing towards the trip to Norway. And people do this differently. You know, some people are fully responsible for all their own stamps or ones that they've trimmed and they've collected and they turn them in. What I do is here at the lodge, we have some people that are really good about trimming stamps or turning them in and so forth. And so as I'm trimming and turning in anything that's collected here at the lodge, I try to send in postcards with their names on, as well as the lodge's name and so forth. And I put my name on, you know, every once in a while for trimming and going over them and so forth. And so your lodge can kind of establish your own way to do that. This is what the actual postcard looks like. It has whose name should be on for the drawing, the contact information, that the pound was certified by, and it isn't like you have to get like a notary or something, you know, it's just that, and maybe if you're doing it yourself, that you weigh them yourself and so forth. And then the name of the lodge district and your lodge number. So that is the background of the Tubfrim program. So we do have a handout that we've put together that we have on the district website, and I've used and sent out in a number of places and so forth. Just gives some of the background and so on about the Tubfrim program, and just an easy thing that you can insert into newsletters. So if you ever need just a Word version of this, just let me know and I can certainly send it to you and get that to you. But again, Mary Bennett is our key person for Tubfrim in District 5 and for the international. Now we're going to take a look at the Tubfrim website. So if you go to tubfrim.no for Norway, this is what their homepage looks like. And so obviously if you speak Norwegian, you'll be able to not have too many problems with that. But if you aren't a Norwegian speaker, somewhere over here on the, I gotta remember where it is, they have the English version of this. So let me just, they've got the history, the links. Usually it's really easy to find. I'm not sure where it went. Well, anyway, so it tells about the history and so on. And oh, here's the English version. Fifth one from the bottom for when you go to it and so forth. I'll just give it a second to pop up. So anyway, so this is where I pulled the history from for that handout and so on. You know, how the stamps get to Norway. Mary helps get them up to Minneapolis. So as she has people going to the city, she'll send them along from our district, and the other districts do the same. And what was explained to us is that when there's several companies that go between the United States and Norway with ships. And so they have worked out an agreement with them. And if they have extra cargo space on those ships, they will take the stamps. So all the stamps are sent to Minneapolis in boxes that we buy like reams of paper in. And so so the stamps are loose in there. So we measure them by the pounds, but you don't have to have them in like 1 pound bags when you turn them into Mary. This is all on the honor system and so forth, that you've got your pound of stamps before you send your postcard in. But when those stamps go via the ships to Norway, they come into the port, and then they get a call up in Nesbyen at Tubfrim, and then they drive down to the shipping port, and then they load them up in their car and they take them back up to Nesbyen. So, you know, if you were traveling over to Norway and you were going to be in the Nesbyen or the Hallingdal area and you wanted to take stamps along, you know, maybe you could go over with a suitcase full of stamps and come home with a suitcase full of sweaters and Norwegian chocolate and so on. That'd be a pretty good deal. But for the most part, the stamps all travel over by ship. And that's why, again, it's important that you don't spend money to mail those to Mary, because it may be months or even a year. You know, sometimes storage space up in Minneapolis is an issue. So they limit how many boxes can be taken up and so on if they don't have enough room and so forth. So So on here, I'll just show you some different parts of the website. And again, if you're a Norwegian speaker, you can find, you know, some of these different ways. But what Tubfrim does is they actually give out uh, um, some grants and scholarships. So the money, this is the actual building, the money that is raised from these online sales is used to give grants and so forth to handicapped and handicapped people, handicapped families, and handicapped groups. And so so that's how they go about. I'm just showing you some of the different, I'm not a Norwegian speaker, so one of these has the sales and so forth, but you can see some of their collection boxes and so forth that they have. I'm just trying to find where the sale is and what they have available. But you can, they have their different price lists and so forth, you know, of the different, you know, ones that, you know, Norwegian ones, and again, that they have specialty ones and so forth. So that is kind of the story of Tubfrim. It's a pretty cool program. It is one that Sons of Norway has worked with for years and years and years. You know, it's a good community service project. It's a good project for members to do, you know, in those winter months or when they're getting to an age where they're maybe not as mobile anymore and can't help in some ways, but their hands are still good, that they like to, you know, work with the scissors and trim those stamps. It's a good thing for small groups to get together and do. They can visit and trim stamps and have fun and have coffee and so forth. And just a wonderful program that way. So anyway, so that's a little bit about Tubfrim. So I appreciate you tuning into this, and hopefully this is helpful. If you need more information, please contact us at Sons of Norway District 5. Thank you.